Greetings. This is the Cancer Interviews podcast, and I'm your host, Bruce Morton. Our guest on this episode is a portrait of what it's like for one to address her or his cancer journey with energy and passion, and to take that energy and passion to others experiencing a cancer journey. She is Susan Svoboda of North Tustin, California, a survivor of hormone-positive breast cancer and an author. Prepare to be inspired. Here she is. And Susan, welcome to Cancer Interviews.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Susan, we want to start off by jumping into your cancer journey, because for all of us who have survived cancer, there was that point in time in which our health seemed normal, and then normal crossed a line and became abnormal. When did you initially notice something wrong with your health, something that led to a cancer diagnosis?
In November of 2021, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. This came after a very healthy life up until that point, literally tonsils out at 16 and gave birth to 2 kids in the 80s without an aspirin. So this hit me hard. I was faithful with my November mammograms every single year, even during COVID. And all women know how those mammograms go. It's uncomfortable for a couple minutes. 2 weeks later, you get a letter in the mail saying all clear, and you go on with your life. Unfortunately for me, I got a phone call 2 days later, and they said, we need you back. We need you back for another mammogram, an ultrasound, and a biopsy. My alarm bells went off, and I knew something was wrong.
And that led to the diagnosis that you alluded to moments ago. There's no such thing as a good day to find out that you've learned you have cancer. So we're not asking if it was a bad day, but all of us are a bit different. Our diagnoses are different. So if you take that equation and put that in perspective for you, how did you handle that news when you got it?
Well, once I went to that biopsy, I have to tell you, it was one of the most painful things I've ever had in my life. I left there with a metal clip in my breast, an ice pack in my bra, and I was crying so hard I had no business driving the car. 2 days later, which happened to be the day before Thanksgiving, I got a phone call saying I had invasive ductal carcinoma. So this was a tough holiday season, that's for sure. My lovely young woman who called me scheduled a meeting with a surgeon. That was in December. And I went to that meeting and learned that my cancer was stage 1-2. It was early. She explained that because it was so close to the front of my left breast, she would be performing a lumpectomy. However, she would be also having to remove my nipple, which was shocking, hard to hear, and hard to even process. So that was a difficult time.
And I'm guessing that for anyone in that situation, in addition to anything physical, you need emotional support. For you, where did that support come from?
My support, I've been married to my high school sweetheart for 50 years. I like to say that he is the most annoying man I've ever met in my life, and also the nicest. The thing about men, though, is that they are very linear in their thinking. They want to go in a straight line. They want to get you an answer. They want to solve a problem. My husband couldn't solve this problem. And I really believe that's why we have girlfriends. They let us talk about it some more, waller, cry a little more. And I really believe that finding your tribe, especially during something this difficult, is imperative to getting through it.
By the way, we want to remind you, we're confident you'll be able to learn some tips and tools as you listen to Susan to help you through your personal cancer journey. But first, we'd like to invite you to please give us a like, leave a comment or review below, and share this story with your friends. Kindly click on the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon. That way you'll be notified the next time we post a cancer interview. And we want to remind you that on Cancer Interviews, we are not distributors of medical advice. If you seek medical advice, do yourself a favor and please contact a licensed healthcare professional. Now, Susan, you've been diagnosed with breast cancer, and as we've learned from these interviews, all cancers are cancer, but each type of cancer is different. And one of the ways it's different is in how a patient, once diagnosed, will either be given treatment options or there won't be treatment options. There's only one way to go in terms of how to treat their cancer. where you were concerned, did you have treatment options?
Well, she painted a path for me, and the first thing for me was going to be the surgery. It occurred in January of 2022. It was deep in a COVID winter, and unfortunately, my husband couldn't even come inside the hospital with me. He had to drop me off out front. So that was an extremely lonely walk. My surgery went well. They got good margins. They checked the lymph nodes. There was no cancer found there. My next stop was an oncologist, and I met with a woman, and she explained to me that you get a score, shall we say, with cancer, especially breast cancer. It takes in many factors. If that score is 25 or greater, your path is usually chemotherapy. My score was 14, so I was able to dodge the chemotherapy, which was truly a blessing. That she also recommended that I take a estrogen inhibitor pill, and she said it would be for 5 years. And I am not much of a pill person. I am not much of a pill taker. Like I said, I had an extremely healthy life up until this point. I ran 65 half marathons from the time I turned 57 till the time I turned 65. So I felt pretty hardy, and I just questioned this. And I said, I'm not sure. I can't answer whether I'm going to do this or not. And I left that appointment, and I did some research. In fact, I did a lot of research. And I don't mean WebMD or anything like that. I did a deep dive. What would this pill do? What were the side effects? And the side effects were joint pain, muscle pain, menopause symptoms. Oh, it was so fun the first time. I really wanted to go through it another time. No. Insomnia. At my age, I have insomnia a lot anyways. 230 and I are very familiar with each other. So I was very unsure about this. I reached out to friends. I said, do you know anybody who took this pill? Would they be willing to talk to me about it? Would they be willing to share their experience? And I found women who were. And some of the things I heard was, Susan, I took it a month and couldn't do it anymore. I took it 4 years out of the 5 and stopped. I took it the whole 5 years. However, I didn't realize how lousy I felt till I stopped. I would never make the claim to tell anyone what they should do, whether they should take a pill, not a pill, any kind of medical treatment. What I'm telling you is be your own best health advocate. Ask questions, ask more questions. If you feel like you have a doctor who thinks you're asking too many questions, get a new doctor. The times of just nodding our head and going, oh, okay, whatever you say, that's behind us. We need to have an active role in our own medical treatment. I had fabulous treatment, and I think it's because I was involved. I think it was because I did ask all those questions. I did weigh my options. For me, at the end of this, my decision was not to take this pill.
So treatment consisted of what?
Well, the next stop is radiation. I did meet with the radiologist. I went over everything with her, and I did agree to radiation. I had 15 rounds of radiation, 5 days a week for 3 weeks. It was more tough than I thought it was going to be. It really was, because it's cumulative. It's cumulative. In other words, it collects with you. The first one starts out pretty good. By the time you hit number 15, you're pretty tired. You're pretty, worn out. I had, again, these fabulous technicians, these young people that were so wonderful to me. And here they're seeing a patient every 15 minutes, and yet their kindness just was every single time I went in there. And I remember the first time I was there, I wasn't happy to be there. I wasn't a good patient. I was crabby. And he said to me, let's put some music on. Let's make you feel better. Let's put some music on. And I'm like, He goes, what do you like? I don't know. I was still just crabby and grousing. And I said, okay, how about the Beatles? And what came on but yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. So I had to laugh at that one because it hit pretty close. Another time it was Let It Be. So there were a lot of lessons in this for me that happened along the way, a lot of things that happened, but the people I met, the people who helped me through it were amazing. One of the things that happens, they're very cautious of radiation, especially on your left breast because of your heart. They deal in millimeters. It's very precise. And they also worry about blistering and redness. And I was using aloe vera, which they had recommended. I had plants in my backyard, so I went the natural way and I just cut those plants off and used it that way. The trouble with it is I don't know if you've used aloe vera, but it stinks. It has the texture of snot, in my opinion, and it's just awful. So I was complaining about that one day to one of the young techs, and she said, Susan, put your aloe vera on and then go buy Aquaphor and put that on top of it to protect it further. And I did that and the smell was gone. So it's tiny things like that when you're going through any kind of cancer treatment that can just make all the difference. The people and the way they treat you and these little tidbits of things that help my road were phenomenal. And I felt so blessed and lucky to encounter these people who cared that much to share things with me.
Susan, so you found the right tribe, and you were blessed to be treated by the right doctors, the right techs. I have to ask, though, there must have been some part of this treatment that was difficult. What was the toughest part of your treatment journey?
In all honesty, the toughest part of the treatment was making the decision not to take that estrogen inhibitor pill, because that means I had to own it. And when I spoke with the doctor about it, I said to her, what are my chances of getting breast cancer again? She said, you have an 8 to 10% chance of getting breast cancer, but if you take the pill, it'll drop it to 50% to 4 or 5%. And I looked at her and I said, Doctor, I think I have an 8 to 10% chance of getting hit by a car when I'm running down the street in my neighborhood doing my runs. I said, that's just not good enough for me. I had to own the decision to say no. I had to own that if it comes back, would it have come back anyways? Is it on me? I don't know the answer to that. That's future and I don't know it. But I was okay with it. But it wasn't a simple decision. It was a thought, long, hard decision. And but I feel good about it. I feel good about it today.
Now let's take the direction all this is going and turn it in a more positive direction. When did you notice that you were trending the right way, that you were moving toward recovery? What did you notice and how did that feel emotionally?
Well, what was interesting is I did have a friend at the very beginning of this who said to me, go get a notebook, write down every question you have, write down everything, because you get in front of those doctors, you're scared, you're worried, you think you've covered it all, you get in your car at the end and guess what, you forgot a couple questions. So I used my book as, my Bible. And I even did things like I have teenage grandchildren. They're 18, 19, and 20. And I'm a very early riser and a very early going to bed person. Teenagers are famous for midnight or 1 a.m. text to you. So many a morning I would wake up with a text from one of these kids saying, Grammy, I know this is a really hard time. I know things are scary, but you're the strongest lady I know and I love you and it's going to be okay. And for whatever reason, I printed those texts and I cut them out and I put them in the book too. And what I realized was I had the outline for a book, and it happened organically. It wasn't my initial intention, but writing for that entire year of 2022, it saved me from the depths of despair. It gave me hope because I turned a corner with the book, retelling the story, and I was telling it also as it was going along. So it just made everything better, in all honesty, not just from a medical standpoint of having those questions at hand and getting my answers, but being able to put pen to paper and kind of let it go a little bit.
And the name of your book is I Hate the Color Pink. What did the color pink ever do to you?
I have that. I have lots of Meet the Author events all over where I share my story with women, and inevitably someone always says, do you really hate the color pink? And I always say, no, not really, but I do hate those little pink ribbons that remind me of my breast cancer. And it's a really catchy title for a book, don't you think?
Now, I want to go back to an area that you've already covered. You've talked about and with great passion, the importance of self-advocacy. But what preceded the act of self-advocacy was the deep diving. Could you elaborate on the importance of deep diving and maybe give us a little primer on Deep Diving 101?
I just think that you need to, again, take an active role in your health care. And I think there's so many things available to us today, almost too many things sometimes. You know, people, they get on that internet and they Google things and they fall into a very black hole sometimes because they only read the worst things. But I think if we intelligently look to resources, many resources, not just, you know, like I said, WebMD or Google or whatever, talking to people who walked in your shoes. And every single breast cancer woman has similarities and differences. We're all different. And I liken it to having children. I think childbirth is one of those things that have a lot of similarities for all women across generations. And yet your experience of childbirth is your experience. I think the same thing holds with breast cancer. I think that it is important if you find people willing to share with you. And I just don't mean the ugly, terrible stories. There's beautiful stories out there. There's success stories. The success stories are growing with breast cancer daily. The statistic, sadly, is 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer in the United States. That is still the statistic, which is, in my opinion, awful. But we have early detection, getting those mammograms, being proactive. You know, I have been reminded by many women that I got my mammogram, like they want to share it with me now. It's very interesting because I am a very big advocate for that. This is not a put your head in the sand thing. Just because you want to ignore it doesn't mean it's not going to be there or couldn't possibly be there. Find out early. Don't miss those mammograms. And I had a woman come up to me at one of my book talks and she said, I'm 49 years old and I've never had a mammogram. And I tried not to look horrified, but I felt it inside. And then she said, but I read your book last week and I have an appointment next week. And I felt so incredibly happy, not for me, not for my book, but that it touched somebody at the heart enough that they realized how important it is and they got checked. That's everything, in my opinion.
Our guest is Susan Svoboda of North Tustin, California. And Susan, we're moving toward the point in which we're going to wrap up. But I do want to ask you one thing, and we ask this of many of our cancer survivors. Think about your active lifestyle prior to diagnosis and think about physically where you are today. Is there anything today you cannot do, you could do pre-diagnosis?
No, I feel very fortunate. I feel like I am 100%. Obviously, I have physical changes in my body with scars and things like that. But you know what? That's just the superficial stuff. I am getting older, so I run less now than I used to, but I walk every single day. And I, think that there's 2 things that we can absolutely control with our health. It doesn't have to be breast cancer, anything. And it's attitude and exercise. And I don't mean you have to run half marathons. I mean, get out there in the sunshine and walk around your neighborhood. And that attitude, it's everything. It is the difference between a good day and a bad day. It's the difference between a day you can get through easier and a day that you don't want to crawl out of bed. But trying to put a positive spin on your life, on your day, even in baby steps, it's everything.
So, to review, we've learned about the importance of deep diving. We've learned about the importance of self-advocacy, and we've learned about the importance of finding the right tribe. And we've learned about your book, Susan, I Hate the Color Pink. And if somebody who hasn't picked up that book, but now, after hearing you talk, is interested, how can they get it?
You can find it on Amazon. It's easy to find. I Hate the Color Pink, and it is a pink cover, so it's easy to see. And I thank you so much for that. It has nothing to do with selling books. It has everything to do with sharing the message and giving people hope.
And it's been a great multifaceted message from you. Susan, thanks very much. Thanks very much for being with us on Cancer Interviews.
It has been my honor. Thank you. I appreciate it, Bruce, and good luck with all your cancer interviews.
And we want to remind you, as we conclude every time, our message is the same. If you are on a cancer journey or a loved one is on a cancer journey, you are not alone. There are people out there just like Susan who are there with a message that can ease that cancer journey. So until next time, we'll see you on down the road.